What's up, DeGroote? Welcome to your weekly NBA Bizcast, where we provide you with the information that you need to know. We provide weekly highlights in tech, business, sports, and other interesting stories. Listen while you work, study, drive, or on your break. Right now, I'm going to take us right over to Alex with the community news and what's going on in the markets. Alex, how's it going?
Not bad, Connor. Thanks. So starting off with the community news, I'm sure everyone's well aware NBA association elections are well underway. Just remember, speeches are tomorrow at 5:30 in the Great Hall. The speeches will be followed by a presidential debate, so get ready to see the gloves come off. Voting goes live at 7 p.m. tomorrow, so expect an email with links to the online voting systems at that point. The NBA Marketing Association is planning its first event, a Day in the Life Mixer, this Thursday from 6 to 7:30. The event is aimed at first-year students with upper-year students who've done marketing co-ops before to give them a bit more of an edge when they're deciding on rank and match. Expect to see more details about this event in your inboxes later today. The NBA Finance Association's Stock Market Challenge began today. As well, remember that the Marquee Group Valuation Workshop is this Saturday, the 20th, from 9 to 5. For more info on both, check out the NBA FA Facebook page and get signed up ASAP. Lastly, next Monday there will be a stress management workshop from 11:30 to noon, and if you'd like to sign up, do so on Oscar Plus. Moving straight into the economic and market news, the past 2 weeks on the TSX have been a slowing couple of weeks. The markets have closed last week down around 12,200 and have continued to lower today, down below 12,200 to around 1270. This is a result of two major factors. One is likely the Canadian housing cool down. National home sales in September were down 15.1% below where they were a year ago, with more than half of the country's local markets down by at least 10%. However, adjusting the numbers for seasonal trends, September's sales edged up 2.5% from August's, from the Canadian Real Estate Association said Monday. That marks the first monthly increase since March. Royal LePage CEO Phil Soper suggested that it does seem sales are slowing and prices are likely to follow suit. However, added that because of low interest rates and the downward pressure on prices should be minimal. Beyond our borders, economic outlooks have bleakened in the past 2 weeks. China's slowdown this year has been significant, and some fear it could accelerate, the World Bank wrote in its East Asia and Pacific Data Monitor. This has been demonstrated by demand slumps for global commodities normally used to fuel the Chinese economy, such as Australian copper. IMF chief economist Oliver Blanchard said in a statement, "Low growth and uncertainty in advanced economies are affecting emerging markets and developing economies through both trade and financial channels, adding to homegrown weaknesses."
I feel like one of the big things there is that China and Japan are having territorial disputes, and I feel that may have played a factor into their economy slowing down as well. There's a lot of uncertainty in the market in Asia because of this, so I feel that's a huge factor on that point.
Certainly, and I've also heard to some degree that China's rising yuan is considered to be directly related to the presidential debate that's going on right now, and some analysts believe that the rising yuan is actually in order to increase Obama's strength against his opponent.
He who must not be named.
He who must not be named.
Well, the Chinese prefer Obama because they think he'll borrow more money from them. But I don't know necessarily that Min Ron doesn't want to borrow money as well, because he's saying right now he's going to reduce the deficit and do all these financially responsible things. But that's the same thing Obama said. He's like, oh, Bush spent all this money on war. I'm going to save money. And then he came in and spent just as much money. So I don't really know what their angle is right now, but you know they have an angle.
Well, it's really hard to follow through with that kind of thing once you actually get into office. See, the thing that people fail to realize is that the president's just a rubber stamp. He gets in there every 4 years, but the people in Congress, people in the Senate, the people behind the scenes, they don't really change. And their policies are the ones that they're going to be pressuring the president to do anyways. So when Obama came in, he was under the same pressure Bush was under, and he was under the same pressure that Clinton was under. It just keeps going back and back and back. So there's not much that they can really do, even though they might make promises about it.
Moving back, though, just in the case of Canada, the IMF has lowered its projections for economic growth to 1.9% in 2012 and 2% in 2013. And just closing out our economic and market look rundown, it's just notable that Apple has continued to take a beating after reaching its highest share price 4 weeks ago. Its price is down 11% from that $705 and is currently sitting around $630.
Lots of interesting stuff going on. Tunde, you've got a Windows 8 preview for us to talk about.
I know everyone's excited for the launch of Windows 8, right? You guys are all pumped?
Oh yeah.
So the new version of Windows is coming out. It's 8, which means one better than 7. So we already know it's good right there. It's going to be a drastic change from the status quo. It's launching October 26th. It's going to cost you $69.99 to buy it on disc, $39.99 to get an upgrade download, and $15 if you bought a computer between June 2nd of this year and up to January 31st of next year. So basically, they're really trying to saturate this one. The biggest thing they've done is the start screen. So everyone knows, you hit the start button in the bottom left, little horizontal or a little vertical bar comes up while your little programs come up. They have gone completely the opposite direction. They no longer want to use the word program ever again. It's all about apps. So now there's an app start screen, and when you hit start, it's actually, if anyone's ever used the Xbox, you guys play the Xbox, or a Windows phone, or a Zune. Okay, none of you have ever seen a Zune, but if you have, like, the way the interface works is it's a cascade of tiles. So you open it up, and it looks like this big, beautiful, futuristic interface, big squares for every single app or program. You have your email, a square comes up telling you how many new ones you have, who sent you an email, you have a little picture preview, and it's all the way in a horizontal scrolling side-to-side list. They've gotten rid of the startup programs thing, but you can still see all of your apps by hitting a button in the bottom right corner, but I'll go into that later. The basics of this is they want a very friendly interface. It's actually very tablet friendly. It looks very much like a tablet interface. Big screens, big menus, big squares, lots of bright colors, and everything complicated and tricky or difficult that people have said about Windows is gone. They basically went from what we know now as Windows with the desktop to a Metro interface that's I think they kind of decided, what do people want to do on their computer? Browse the web, send email, share pictures and photos, social networking. Consumers mostly are doing everything but spreadsheets and data.
So I think this sounds like Microsoft's doing a good job responding to the general consumer and competing with their competitors. But is this going to be the death of the power user? Are we no longer going to be able to access the options functions that have made Windows way more customizable than Apple? Or are these things going to be still an option in the new Windows 8?
Well, that's the thing. Is they basically, I think they looked at the sales of the iPad and the sales of MacBooks and realized, you know what? We can do all this, fancy, hardcore power user stuff, but no one really knows how to do it, and they don't want to do it. So we just want people to just search. Like they're basically, it's kind of offensive a little bit, and they're dumbing it down to where it's just like, here's a box that says internet, here's a box that says Facebook, here's a box that says movies, and now just do those things. But they're actually still working on it, and they have a neat little thing. So they have a 4-corner interface. Top left corner, I think, does. Let me look this up right now. They have this. The top right, starting with the top left corner is your most recently used apps. The top right corner is your settings. The bottom left, like always, is your start button, your start menu, and the bottom right is a big wide view of your apps. If you hit the top right and you go into one of the settings, it's called Charms for some reason. Charms, then Settings, then Control Panel. You got all the stuff you're looking for. You're adjusting your graphics card. You're adjusting your resolution, all your timings, all the stuff you could do before. You can do all that. The only danger with this new thing is, for one of the things to show up on the start screen to have the cool interface, you have to make a new program for the Metro interface. So programs you already use now, like the program we use to record, or even stuff like VLC Player or anything you currently use now, if the developer hasn't made a Metro compatible version, you won't be able to use it in the Metro environment. So that's I think basically it's going to still be a success, but they're going to keep producing Windows 7 in parallel because you can't run a business currently off of Windows 8.
So as computer hacking students couldn't use VLC.
Yeah, okay. All you fancy computer hackers.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I'm also concerned with is they're going the same way as Apple in that they no longer endorse Flash. They no longer ship Flash with their computers. They don't believe in Flash whatsoever. So if you want to,
the general consensus though, people moving away from Flash.
People have been moving away from Flash. It's just that I think some people still don't realize how much Flash people, especially people in our demographic, still use. Like, if you ever watched a video on Mega Video or any of those websites, I'm not calling anyone up for watching a legal video, but if you're watching those videos online, those are all Flash-based. And a lot of games that people play online are Flash-based as well. If you play Tetris in your browser, that's Flash-based. Super Mario in your browser, that's Flash-based. So that's going to be But they're hoping that all that stuff will just be replaced by apps. All that stuff you can code in HTML, and you can just download from the App Store. And they're doing a Microsoft App Store.
So, can we get the Tuesday verdict? Do I buy it immediately? Do I wait a few months to see what the market thinks, or just ignore it? Pretend this doesn't exist. Completely ignore it. What do you think?
I think it's got to fall into a couple categories. If you own more than one machine, I definitely recommend buying it. It's $15, and especially if you use your machine with your TV. That's the biggest area where it's really amazing. If you hook up your computer to your TV, now you don't have to worry about using a keyboard and mouse from your couch, because everything's just these gigantic squares, and it's just all you need is a trackpad or even like a small wireless mouse. And you just scrolling side to side, you can get your videos, your movies, your games, and it does one really cool thing that I think computers need for a while, and that is full notification support for Facebook, Twitter, emails, anything you use. It'll give you a little pop-up on your computer saying it's there. If you only have one machine, or if your machine is used a lot for work, if you're doing Excel, if you're doing Windows. I haven't got a chance to try out Word or Excel in the new Windows 8. I have played around with it a little bit, but as you can see, if you can see my laptop right now, I've gone back to regular Windows 7 because I needed to work on my OB paper, and I didn't really know how to do some of the formatting stuff in the new version of Word.
So it sounds still kind of like a little toy.
It's a wait unless you have two machines, or unless you if you just honestly want to surf the internet, it's going to be a million times better.
Interesting. Okay, great, thanks. Franklin, there's healthcare news in Manitoba that you want to share with us.
Yeah, so the province of Manitoba has released this 2011-2012 annual report this year, and it's showing that the number of doctors making $500,000 or more, but under $1 million, has quadrupled since last year to 124. And that the number of doctors making more than $1 million this year has increased 16 times since 2002.
It's crazy.
In total, the province is spending $972 million on healthcare, which is up a significant 28% from 2007-2008, where they spent $759 million in doctors' fees alone.
I just want to give a slow golf clap to the doctors in Manitoba for just getting themselves paid. All of them just getting paid.
Just as a point of reference, typical salary for a Canadian doctor is about $120,000 to $180,000. So these Manitoba doctors are doing quite well for themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they say that the demand and I guess the increase in salaries stems from an aging population and just a higher demand. They're noting that specialists like ophthalmologists are making a huge amount of money, and then they contribute significantly to those numbers simply because of the age-related diseases that are associated with their practice.
I think that the tricky part is, and I don't have any empirical data on this, but what I find really tricky is how can you be sure when especially with an aging population, when the visits are actually going to make a difference, or when they're just seeing as many people as possible because they could all possibly have something wrong?
Well, I guess there's no real way to determine that.
The billable hours issue is definitely my frame of reference. And I'm also concerned about, I know we were talking earlier about why don't we just get more doctors? They all bill less per hour, they spread out the wait times, reduce everything.
Well, the problem here is that another factor, in addition to the age, is a reason why they're having to pay these doctors so much is in order to keep them in the province. I mean, most Canadian provinces, not just Manitoba, has this problem where the doctors are wanting to go overseas because they can make even more money in America or in the Caribbean or other parts of the world. So you end up with these ridiculous salaries just to give them an incentive to stay.
But then we got to get more homegrown Canadian doctors who'd have no desire to leave, right? Or less desire to leave.
We do, but it's really hard to get into medical school to begin with.
So I think they need to loosen the guidelines that it takes to get into med school?
Well, yeah, to be honest with you, I mean, I was pre-med for a while, and I can tell you, it's really hard to try to get in. I mean, luckily I decided to come to DeGroote instead, and I'm much happier here than I would have been in med school, but I've got friends who ended up trying to do the med school route, and they're qualified, some of them more qualified than I was, great test scores, great GPAs, didn't get in. Now they're doing master's degrees just trying to reapply every year, and it's hard, it's tragic, because we have some really smart and capable people, but the opportunities just aren't there.
I'm not proposing we make it easier to get into med school, because I don't want some semi-skilled doctors. I don't want a guy who got a 70% doing heart surgery on me. But I'm just saying, we just open up more spots. I don't see why there's so few spots, why there's so few teaching hospitals.
Yeah, another thing though is like when you look around, there's a lot of people that come to the country, skilled immigrants that are driving cabs or driving a bus or doing something like that.
Yeah.
When they're fully qualified, they've been to med school, they've done it all. They come here and they can't get a job. Why is it so hard? Why is it so strict?
Well, I can speak to that firsthand. Like, my dad came here in 2003, I think, or 2003, I think, was when he got here. And he's a fully licensed medical doctor. He got his master's in public health in the States at Johns Hopkins University. And he worked at a parts sorting factory for the majority of the time he was here. He now lives in Australia. He applied for 5 or 6 years.
We could have kept him here.
Yeah. Well, the Australians accepted and they're also in the Commonwealth. They accepted his medical training, but Canada said that he was only fit to sort parts.
Those of you in the HSM specialization, take note of these problems, because these are what we're going to have to be solving in a couple years.
Good point. All right, that was very interesting. Now, there was elections in Venezuela.
Yep, elections in Venezuela. October 7th, it was Hugo Chavez versus Henrique Capriles. Huge upset for Henrique. Hugo Chavez won yet again. 3rd time. Another 6-year term.
I'm shocked, really.
I'm not either, man. Like, seriously, come on. Hugo Chavez, how is he not going to win? This guy is so charismatic. He probably just bought people's votes out. I mean, this guy's spending was extravagant over the election term. Check this. On his presidential show, Allo Presidente, he gave callers cement and chickens as a reward for calling in. So.
Okay, see, I'm surprised, 1, he has a presidential show,
Yes, he does.
and 2, giving away cement and chickens isn't illegal?
He's the president. Who's going to change the laws?
Chavez set up his own time zone.
Bribery.
So he can do what he wants. And then it also said in his free time he actually just hangs out with his pal Fidel Castro.
Of course.
He's been out in Cuba a lot because of his cancer treatments, and apparently Venezuela has a way that in which they trade with Cuba not over money but in medical professions. So basically they give him oil and they get medical help in return. So that's the way they're bartering basically. They're not exchanging any hard cash per se. Anyhow,
Was his opponent qualified at all, or it sounds like Chavez won with these gifts, these extravagant gifts, that it wasn't that he's the qualified great guy.
in all honesty, there's so much poverty in the country. I was speaking to a Venezuelan friend, and she said that half the country is just sick and tired of Chavez, just because there's no foreign direct investment allowed. The company's just in the gutter. But on the other hand, because there's so much poverty, when he gives gifts like this, it's basically meeting these basic needs of people.
So lowering the bar and stepping over it.
Pretty much. And this other guy, I mean, it was a really close election. I think he only won by like 11% or 6% of the vote, so it was really, really close, and it's the closest that it's ever been. So
yeah, I read it was like a 54-46 split, something close
to that.
Yeah. And interesting, an 80% voter turnout.
Wow.
80% of Venezuelans.
They had to keep the polls open for longer than the deadline that was set, and you can see how that might have played towards Chavez's favor. Probably paid a bunch of people to go out and start voting.
I couldn't imagine if we had 80% turnout in a Canadian election. That'd be crazy.
Yeah. Are there any impacts you think that this might have on Canada, or at least North America in general?
Honestly, it's basically going to be that they're not going to allow any more foreign direct investment. He sees this win as a positive indicator that his policies, anti-foreign foreign direct investment policies, are actually working. So basically, Canadians, Americans, we're not going to be able to go there. Over his last few terms, what he's done is taken over at least 1,000 companies, and he started playing hardball with companies like Exxon that are huge. So you can see how that's a huge factor. Interesting fact, though, even though Cuba has $64 billion in sovereign debt, they have never defaulted on their payments under Chavez's watch.
You mean Venezuela?
Venezuela, yeah.
Yeah.
So they've never
That's
defaulted on
That's
their
really
payment,
surprising.
which is really surprising. That's something. And
Chavez just paying them off himself.
possible. The other thing, though, in 2012, so for this year, because of all its spending and everything, Venezuela was the world's best performing stock market, which is really weird too.
Well, I think that probably has a lot to do with the subsidized oil within the country, right? I mean, the economy is propped up on a subsidy for oil that brings the oil price well below what we pay for it in Canada. Kind of supercharges their economy in relative terms to all the other economies in the world that are paying the global price. So that might be a source of part of their success. So it might be a bit of a something if they were to face, the real prices of what they're doing. It might not be so fast and go left.
Yeah, basically, that's exactly what JP Morgan is saying. The Venezuelan debt is overweight rather than market weight. Moody's says the same thing, that his re-election has a strong mandate to continue budgetary and investor-unfriendly policies, increasing unsustainable and a credit-negative country. So, honestly, this guy's it's a bubble that's going to burst, and it's already started with his election when the economy's already started to go down 3%. So,
sounds like he's more invested in maintaining his position than improving the lives of his people. And I think over a longer term span, that eventually will come back to haunt you. If he's at 46% now, which is obviously a move away from where he was in the last election, of people who do not want him as president, it's only a matter of time before that dissension kind of overrides his rule and causes real friction.
So all in all, basically, we have him for another 6 years. He's not doing too well. He's really old, so we don't know what's going to happen. But 6 more years, and then it is what it is.
Interesting. Okay, I'm going to move on to something a little bit different. What do you guys think about free tuition, free education?
Bad
please.
idea.
Love it.
Bad idea.
Sign me
love
up,
it.
sir. Sign me up.
Sign you up.
Yes, please.
Yes, please. So obviously we've heard about Quebecers. They love to protest everything, specifically lowering tuition. As a student, I like to hear, lower tuition, only, undergrad, it's like $2,000 a year, something incredibly low, lowest in Canada. Read an article by the president of U of T saying, yes, it's this beautiful idea of lower tuition. That means more people can have access to it. In fact, there have been many Canadian studies that have shown that lowering tuition actually decreases the supply of spots available in university. So yes, school might be cheaper, but fewer and fewer people might have access to access to post-secondary education.
I can kind of see that. I can kind of see that because
there's only so much that the government can throw at tuition.
No unlimited money.
So I thought that was interesting, and to me it sounds like we have, if you really want post-secondary education and you work hard enough to get yourself that spot, there are scholarships, there are bursaries, there are student loans, there's enough available that it shouldn't matter. But I can see the other side of the argument. Well, I want free education, I can't afford it. If you work for it, I think you should be able to get it, but you're compensated. So, do you guys have any final opinions on it?
Well, I think a lot of people don't actually grasp quite how much the government subsidizes their education currently. I think my economics professor in undergrad explained that something like $20,000 per student is subsidy. So you might be paying $5,500 a year, but there's well over $10,000 of subsidies that are offsetting that price and giving you that $5,500 a year price. That's coming right out of the tax pool. So there is already a lot being done by the government to make sure that we can afford the burden of gaining that post-secondary education and improving human capital in Canada.
I think one thing we can look at before we complain about prices, I know it is cheaper in Quebec, but let's just take a look. Look at our friends south of the border. Bigger population, way more universities in any state than there is in the entirety of Canada. And a lot of the state-funded schools still pay more money than we do. And then we talk about the private schools, like these are private schools you usually think of people playing sports at. Very few people go to these private schools because USC, $50,000 a year for tuition at USC. And this is for an undergrad degree.
Med school at Dartmouth. I got into Dartmouth, and they wanted $70,000 a year as a Canadian student to study there.
Yeah,
that's leaving out living expenses and whatnot.
So we're still not on the spectrum, continuing spectrum, especially in developed nations. We're still not bad. The only nations that are developed and have an entirely free university come at massive tax rates, higher than we even pay on specific items, and also they happen to be much like I think it's the Netherlands. I want to say Denmark. I have to look this up, but a few of the Scandinavian countries do free university. But keep in mind, if their whole country is the size of Toronto, the population density allows you to build 2 universities, and then everyone can go to university for free because you only need 2 because it's a small country in a tiny little place. But on our scale, I don't see it working out for us if we did free university.
Yeah, I mean, back to the point. I pay about in undergrad. I paid about $20,000 a year as an international student, and out here on the MBA, I'm paying about $65,000 for the full program. It is a lot, and I don't get subsidized. So you can see that when you get the government subsidy, whatever help that they do give you, OSAP, be it whatever grants, you do get a less expensive education, and it's not too bad when you compare it to someone that has to pay the full price.
Definitely.
And last but not least, but I think one thing that you also forget about is when I lived in Nigeria and my cousins were going to university, and it's not free by any means there, but heavily subsidized. A few of them are heavily subsidized universities. It's very hard to get in. A lot of people who get in because of typically from connections. But if you said in Ontario, we're going to say tuition is free, that means we can go for, let's say McMaster goes from 25,000 students to 12,000 students. You have to have fantastic grades because that's in this order to that many resumes. You can't interview everyone to see what their personality is. So they're just going to go based off of probably grades and maybe a few other factors. All of a sudden, now maybe I don't get in. Maybe you don't get to meet me. Maybe I don't get to go to school because I didn't have a 95 average. So
it promotes hardworking individuals, but it goes against the Canadian movement of getting more people educated and giving more people higher education. So very, very differing opinions on how you can take it. Interesting. So Ari, what's going on with sports?
Well, it's that time of year again, ladies and gentlemen. Preseason has kicked off, and the NBA is back in full effect with a Jack rookie class, a new franchise in Brooklyn, and storylines that would give Young and the Restless a run for their money. It's finally time to break out the vintage Jean Tabak jerseys because the Toronto Raptors seem primed to make a run, and dare I say it, the 8th seed. With Dwayne Casey instilling a defensive culture with the franchise, coupled with the addition of a gritty point guard in Kyle Lowry and Jonas Valanciunas ready to make a people forget we drafted Rafael Araujo, this team is bound to make a splash in the weak Eastern Conference. Switching gears, can anyone extinguish the Heat? If there's one team that could do it, I think Tunde may agree with me, it's the new-look Lakers. With the starting lineup that boasts Pau Gasol, Kobe Bryant, Dwight Howard,
Steve Nash,
Ron Artest, let's not forget about him. It's hard to believe Mitch Kupchak, the GM of the Lakers, couldn't convince Magic to come out of retirement. Either way, the Lakers have emerged as immediate contenders. I just hope Vancouver native Robert Sagard could get some burn during inevitable Laker blowouts. But this offseason, let's go to the Hudson River. Let's check out these Knicks because they've done their scouting, but I think they've done it in the Fort Greene Retirement Center. With the addition of grizzled vets Rasheed Wallace, Marcus Camby, Jason Kidd, and Crazy Eyes Kurt Thomas, the Knicks' average age...
Wait. Kurt Thomas is still able to run? He's 99 million years old?
He is 40 years old, and he's never looked better, to be honest. But, he saw his crazy eyes. So he's spooking players that way. But the average age is at a league record 32 years and 240 days. And do you think these geriatrics have what it takes to muster up a championship run? Maybe.
I just don't see old people being able to play 82 games. If they played a 40-game season, I'd be afraid of that old man team. But 82 games, they're too old to play 82 games.
They got the young guys starting, with the exception of, Tyson Chandler, he's 30 years old, and a few other guys who are in their low 30s. And these other guys are, they're great, off the bench and, 10 minutes, 15 minutes at a time. They might have a shot. Or will the team, across the Hunter River, the Brooklyn Nets, Deron Williams,
they got the Flash,
Joe Johnson.
Dash.
They got
Jay-Z performing at concerts every weekend there.
Barclays Center. That's it for NBA news. But in other news, the NHL is still under lockout. So
it's very depressing. Saturday night, 9 o'clock. Went to watch Hockey Night in Canada. It was classic, NHL classic, which isn't the best. It's not the worst, but it's just like, come on.
Oh yeah, they would have started this weekend, right? If they were running, they would have started this Saturday.
I think this calls for just a 3-second moment of silence for Canadian sports. All right.
Just in all facets.
We're taking a beating. No, what do you think about the Thunder, though? You think the Thunder will actually...
I mean, I think this is their year, if any. They have Kendrick Perkins. They have the necessary pieces. Russell Westbrook, I think he's emerging as a top 5 player. What's keeping them from getting to that elite level?
I just hope it's kind of the year where they just tire everyone out. They're just like, we're young and fast. We're good at everything, every facet of the game. We're just going to wear you guys down.
Can they wear down Lakers, though? I mean, despite their age, they still...
I wouldn't put money on it, but gambling is wrong anyway.
At least not.
Yeah, at least not while you're in university. Yeah, it's just a thing for professional people.
It just doesn't look good when you're making a budget.
Exactly.
Having that line that says gambling 2.5%.
Gambling loss.
nobody likes that. So.
Well, that's all for this week. Thanks for listening, everyone. We hope you enjoyed the show. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at What's Up DeGroote and like us on Facebook. If you want to contact us directly, email whatsupdegroot@gmail.com with any questions or comments. This is What's Up DeGroote signing off to go take over the world.
Oh, we forgot one more thing. If anyone wants to make up a theme song for us, we're currently lacking a theme song. Feel free to hit me up at the Ozone on Twitter or at the DeGroote handle, What's Up DeGroote. I'm looking into a couple things for theme songs. If anyone comes up with something even better, I will fully give you credit every single week for the rest of the time we run this show. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Gotta say goodbye.
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 Goodbye.